started. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is one of our author series events. I believe it's our first one of the new academic year, so thanks for helping kick us off. So we are here to talk about Heartcore. We're going to have, is this conversational back and forth up here, and then I'll moderate any Q&A towards the end. This event is brought to you by County Library and also the MCPHS University Center for Health Humanities. We regularly bring authors to campus as a joint collaborative effort to encourage further use of graphic medicine and health humanities in general across our two campuses. We're right across the street, so why not work together on things? I'm going to stop rambling because I'm clearly not prepared to give these remarks right now. And I'm going to turn things over to our host for the day, Dr. A. David Lewis, who is an associate professor of English and Health Humanities at MCPHS University, among other things, which maybe he'll tell you about or maybe he won't.
Thank you, Matthew No, for that introduction. Thank you for those of you that could be here today and those who are listening wherever you are. I'm here to talk with Szczepanka Gislowa. She is an award-winning comics artist based in Prague and the co-founder of the Czech branch of Ladies Do Comics, an international organization that promotes female comic artists and their work. Gislowa collaborated with Czech writer Teresa Chekova on the 2021 Muriel Prize-winning Bez Vazlu.
Bez Vlasu.
Thank you.
Almost.
Later published by Graphic Mundi in English as Bald. Chekova, tell me the right way to say it, Chekova?
Chekova.
Okay, thank you. The original Czech edition of Heartcore also received the Muriel Award in 3 categories in 2024, including the main prize. So congratulations. We are delighted you could be here with us in Boston today. It is so great to have you doing a whole tour of the U.S., right?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I have a little something for all of you who decided to take time from your busy September schedules. I know the beginning of a school year must be pretty intense.
Ooh.
So please pass this around and take how many stickers you want. There's a bunch of them, and I think there's enough for everyone.
I'll grab one myself. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a few prepared questions for you, Szczepanka, but we can go in whatever direction you like. The only thing I wanted to note at the outset, is that we will, in addition to talking about some lighthearted stuff, also be hitting upon some sensitive stuff. So I do want listeners or attendees to be aware. We will talk about sexual assault. We will talk about grooming. We will talk about men abusing positions of power. But that won't be the sole or exclusive focus, as Heartcore is not solely or exclusively focused on that. The one question I didn't put here, because I thought it was a pretty straightforward question, is what, in your own words, is Heartcore about?
I'd say Heartcore is an attempt to answer a question that was a very burning question that I kept asking myself for so long, and that was why so many relationships, romantic relationships that we get ourselves into, why do they seem the same? It's almost like the person next to us changes, like if it was an actor, but the script stays the same, and then it starts and it ends the same way. So why is that, and can we change that?
And you dove into an exploration of this over many years, also incorporating a great deal of your own biography. Now, one thing you mentioned early in Heartcore, you shared that you had, quote, a classic Eastern Bloc post-communist 1990s childhood.
Yeah,
For-
that's a mouthful.
Well, for our audiences here, could you describe what makes up a classic Eastern Bloc post-communist 1990s childhood?
When I was born in 1992, the country I was born into, Czechoslovakia, post-Czechoslovakia, was a free country only for 3 years. And we call this period of Czech history the wild 90s. All those structures that were put in place by the communist regime were crumbling under the weight of the early capitalistic tendencies that were introduced into our politics. And that was economic, but it was also through various media.
Mm-hmm.
We got all these colorful animated TV shows from States, and the good old Czech fairy tales disappeared, which at that age I thought was super cool, because I wanted to see Pokemon, I didn't want to see some fairy tales. But also it happened in very specific surroundings. Just imagine everything made out of concrete. That's pretty much how it looked like, from schools to houses, just like Lego made out of concrete. And that was it.
Okay. Let's focus just for another second on growing up in the Czech Republic. How do you feel about the sex ed that you received growing up there? And do you have any sense, how do you feel it compares to that's being offered in the US currently, where maybe it appears to be struggling here?
So I think I was actually one of the luckier ones, because I actually got some sex ed.
Okay.
Sure, the sex ed was a book, which of course, books are amazing. We are in a library.
Do you remember the title?
Oh yes, it was Every Girl's Guide to Healthcare.
Okay.
I found the book when I was putting this together. I read it, and I googled the author, which was a perfectly nice lady who was a teenager after the Second World War.
Uh-huh.
So when she was growing up, I think her biggest challenge was coming in terms with the post-war world. While me, I was just trying to, not get lost on the internet that was just, starting to become big. But yeah, you could have learned so many interesting things from this book. I think for its age, it was quite progressive, because it was okay with the reader being, for example, a lesbian. But then again, I remember the quote from this book saying, it's okay to be a lesbian because homosexuality is not really a sexual orientation, but a lifestyle.
Oh, okay. I'm glad they cleared that up.
So I guess that makes it fine.
So they weren't casting it as sinful or as negative, but not entirely real, not entirely legitimate?
Yeah, I think it was just if you want to hang out with your same-sex friend forever, then fine. But you better have short hair and shirts to go with it, because it's a lifestyle, right?
Oh, okay. So you have to buy into the culture, the fashion. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if the boys got their own branded one, or moreover, if there were further gendered editions offered, or was it just 2 editions at the time?
I remember very well that we got some sex ed classes at school, but they were only for girls.
Oh.
And they gave us free pads, and they told us what to expect. But we were super pissed because the boys just got free class, they could just go outside, and we had to
free class.
had to sit at a school and listen to some lady and then we took the pads and just throw it at each other.
So the boys didn't need sex ed, they got recess.
No, I guess they are just born with this knowledge.
Wow. That's That's wild. That's wild. I'm trying to think about how it compares to UX sex ed, but my information is about 30 to 40 years out of date.
So did you got sex ed?
Yes. In fact, there was one night in sixth
Wow.
grade that we were all called to the school with our parents.
With your parents?
Yeah, and the parents were there. And then we got broken into 3 groups after we watched a video together. Not a video, a film strip. Those who identified as girls went to one group, those who identified as boys, and then the third gender was parents at that time, and they got their own.
Elusive third gender.
Yeah, that was the only identified third gender in the wild 1980s U.S. Okay, thank you for that background. Let's fast forward to the 21st century, to the subject of Heartcore, largely, of relationships and dating and love and identity. According to the Pew Research Center, as recently as 2023, over half of U.S. adults under 30 report having used dating apps, especially those who identify as being part of the LGBTQ plus communities. Having been through that experience yourself, what is your view on these apps, from Tinder to OkCupid to Hinge, Bumble, Grindr, eHarmony, Feel, Stir, Her, Planet Romeo, Lex, Scruff, Tammy, Farmers Only, Christian Mingle, Elite Singles, Cowboy Singles, Muzz, and JDate, just to name a few. Do you regard dating apps as a healthy approach and environment, especially when compared to singles bars or meeting over drinks?
I think if you want to have a bunch of funny stories, they're great.
Yes.
And that's it. And fortunately, they are kind of in decline from the latest research shows. And it's interesting that you mentioned the LGBT part or side of things, because this is quite a huge topic, right? Because if you have this marginalized group of people and their main way how to interact with each other is romantic and sexual, then I don't think that's that makes it it's not the best way how to foster a community.
Okay.
And it's not even the best way how to find a romantic partner, because it puts so much pressure on every interaction you have with, let's say, same-sex person, if you're into that. On the other hand, they are also robbed from creating relationships more organically, meaning, I think the statistic is that like half couples get together via apps, and then the second one is still like proximity, so it's a friend group or a workplace. And I think those actually work the best because you meet up in a normal setting, you have time to grow on each other, and I think also there's a little bit less drama in your community when like not everybody's dating everybody.
So is that a point for the apps, that when it's, you say 50% happens over apps, 50% comes from the community, but is there less drama if it comes from the apps, you feel, or is there still plenty of drama when done digitally?
I think there's still a lot of drama.
Still a lot of drama.
But if the way we interact with each other, maybe there is a, like my gay friend is organizing board games for those who identify as men who like men. And sure, some of them might end up dating, but the activity itself is not centered around dating.
Right, I can understand that, sure. And I think we see that here in the U.S. As well. There are certain, I'm not endorsing any of these, but there are certain groups like Meetup, or just to engage in some local activity and then see if there's a natural affinity between people. Okay. Going to go to a quote that you gave for Radio Prague International. When in your interview with them, you say that creating Heartcore as a graphic memoir or graphic exploration, quote, felt therapeutic from time to time, right? However, like graphic memoirs, I'm thinking of The Third Person by Emma Grove or RX by Rachel Lindsay, for instance. You actually recount a rather negative early experience with a behavioral therapist. And we can get into the context of that in a moment. I should note that you do say at the end of the book that you largely endorse mental health treatment and psychological support, particularly in cases like depression or suicidality. Would you have any recommendations, particularly for women addressing romance and relationships who have encountered a poor therapist but still want to seek help?
Yeah, I don't think it's a groundbreaking take to say that making a comics is not therapy. Drawing can feel therapeutical, but it's not therapeutical process. That's still like a medicinal process, right?
Right.
I think a lot of, especially journalists, kind of wanted to hear that. I think many people want to hear that there are things out there that are therapy that are not therapy. And yeah, my experience going to that first therapist was pretty awful. She didn't know what she was dealing with, and she was just like a very rough person. That being said, we've talked about dating, and I actually think that finding a good therapist is very similar to finding a romantic partner. You need to shop around a bit. And when you feel like you clicked with the therapist, then that's where you should go, because your inner projections, your unconscious ideas you need to work through, they are now projected on said therapist, and you actually have something to explore and to talk about. So I know it's not the most cheap activity, but I would really recommend find 3 people, go with each one of them for the first meeting, for the first session, and then pick one.
A connection that I hadn't put together prior to us talking, you likened therapy or shopping around for an appropriate therapist to finding a romantic partner. We were just talking about dating apps. There are now therapy apps. And while I'm not endorsing them necessarily, they do certainly exist and provide benefit to those who might not be able to access therapy by other means. So I wonder if people are shopping around, as you said, on these therapy apps as well.
Yeah, especially with the AI aspect of things. Like nowadays you can find an AI therapist who's willing to validate all and every one of your thoughts and tell you that, friendship should be easy, and if it feels like a challenge, that you should give up. And that's why I really think that, sure, the apps can work, and even like online therapy sessions are better than none, but in these places we need some kind of a social friction, and looking into somebody else's face, your therapist's face, while you say all these things that you believe are true, and seeing how your therapist reacts to that, seeing how your body reacts to what you are saying. Are you sweating? Are you like picking your nails? That's like such a valuable information that can get you into the finish line so much quicker that if you can, then I think this is a better way how to go about it.
Yes, fantastic. I mean, even just breathing the same air as the therapist and being in the same climate,
yes,
I'm sure has an effect. I should just, for the record, state and caution people with AI therapists. There are cases where it has gone terribly awry, but maybe down the line it'll be more advanced. I don't want to automate the therapy profession quite yet.
Yeah.
But I do hear your point, although. Let's move back to the book for a moment. You worked for years on it.
Yeah.
I imagine between scripting and drafting and thumbnailing and sketching. The epilogue, which we, for people who are here, see here on the screen, suggests that the narrative structure on this book about love at all is challenging. Where should readers place particularly what you called part 0? It doesn't come at the beginning of the book. It comes about around the 2/3, just over the halfway point. Now you mark part 0 as taking place in 2009, and you reveal in it the sexual abuse and grooming you experienced as a young woman. Where should readers place that on the timeline for part 1? Because we do get introduced to your childhood in part 1, and then part 2 does allude to some self-harm at the age of 26, but it's only later in the reader's experience that part 0 pops up. When did you know you were going to put it there and set up that experience for the reader?
So actually in the beginning I didn't want to include this chapter about sexual assault because I felt like if you explore this theme in your book, it kind of overpowers everything else, and I wanted to do a book about love, relationship, and the toxic patterns of these two things, and not a book about sexual assault.
Understood.
But as I was working on it, I realized it's kind of a puzzle piece without which the story wouldn't feel whole. And when we're talking about relationships, especially about relationship between men and women, this is kind of something that plays part as well. And so it might feel a bit confusing because in the beginning I describe my childhood. I go really from the beginning, and that at some point this is revealed. So it feels like there might have been something missing from the beginning of the book. But I think that's also how it works in real life. These experiences are so rough and so hard to process that we often just try to ignore them, and we try to live without thinking about them. But also it so often happens that you meet someone, you make some kind of an image, and then when you find out more about them, this can be something that you find out, and now these two images just exist parallel next to each other, because it's kind of hard to realize, but this really confident person went through all of this, but how can that be internalized? So so I think that's why it makes sense that you don't start my book with this knowledge.
Yeah, and I can understand that is a supremely delicate balance to strike, especially when you don't want that to be the whole of the narrative. And I don't know actually if I'm saying WHOLE, whole of the narrative, or HOLE, whole of the narrative, but I can understand that that's a negotiation. You mentioned also, though, that for people that haven't had a chance to read Heartcore yet, I'll bring up that a man does enter the picture named Mike. And because, we'll talk about this maybe more towards the end, because this is what you loosely label autofiction, Mike, as far as the reader knows, could be a collection of Mikes, or are based on one true guy, maybe not by the same name. The reason I bring him up in relation to part 0, even though you meet him later in life, You do give part 5, a whole chapter or part, over to Mike after we've known the character for a while. Then you reveal his own backstory. And so I wonder if those are supposed to be in any way, not parallel reveals, but I wonder, is there a similar strategy there? Did you always intend to flip back to Mike, or did that opportunity arise later in your process?
That was always the intention.
Okay.
But also I was quite lucky that I got complete consent from this Mike to go through his, diaries, sketchbooks, letters, to include him in a way that was truthful and also to which he consented to. I often feel that when we are reading autobiographies, we see into this person's head so well that we start thinking that their story is the objective one. Because we have all the information, we have all the reasoning, and in the end, there is nothing more subjective than an autobiography.
You actually gave a quote to Barbara Dillon, a graphic medicine friend, of Fan-Based Press. It jumped out at me. First, while you note that you love autobiographies and feel everyone has the right to tell their story, you also say that, quote, autobiographies are unethical. It's part of their nature, close quote. Would you unpack that a little further for me? As one who decided to do either autofiction or autobiography, and maybe you draw the line at a different place.
Oh yeah, I honestly think that we own what happened to us in every possible sense, and we have every right to tell our stories, to explore our experiences and to share them. But that's our life, and everybody else in our life becomes a secondary character in our, for example, in a book. And even if we ask them for consent to be portrayed in the inside book, they never really know what they're consenting to. They don't know how they are going to look like. They don't know like in what kind of scenes they might appear, how they are going to be compared to other characters. And therefore, I honestly think that autobiographies are unethical, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't write them. It just means that these two things are true at once, and we should definitely try to lessen the collateral damage of our art. But then again, art always had quite rough edges, so this is just something we're going to be juggling for a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why Mike's perspective was co-created with him, and I wanted to put his perspective in, so then the reader, who was probably for the whole book looking at things through my eyes, would realize, oh, so this might be a different story, but maybe the story I was reading up until now wasn't exactly complete.
And you shift to another color palette, if I remember correctly, with Mike, that it has a slightly different set of colorization in the book. Yeah, I tend to wonder with comics, with the comic medium specifically, when we read just prose, when we read just text all on its own, I think as readers we've been trained to forget that we're reading. There's something, it's supposed to be wonderful when a book becomes immersive, as if you're experiencing it. I'm not saying that can't happen with a comic book or graphic novel, but comics are loudly representational.
Oh yeah.
They're making it very clear through the way that it's drawn, through the borders, through the layout. You're not meant to forget that this is a representation. So I wonder if the ethics are negotiated a little more fairly in your approach through a comic than, maybe fairly is not the right word, overtly. maybe it's approached more overtly in a comic than it might be if you were just to handwrite or type out all of this.
Yeah, I think that's a result of working both with the visual side of things, but also with the textual side of things. I think it's much easier to write stuff down when the person you are writing about is just, just 4 letters on a page.
Sure.
But when you have to draw a face, and maybe that face is expressing some kind of an emotion, then the distance between you as an author, as an artist, is just much smaller than between a writer and, his or her paper or, yeah.
And I think it even differs for if we were to make this film, you'd have to cast someone in that part and then direct them to be like this person, whereas with the comic, you said that the space gets closer.
Yeah, that's what I think is what makes comics such an interesting and honestly a really weird medium.
Yeah.
Because it's not prose. You're not just reading the text, but it's not illustration. You're not just looking at the pictures. And actually, this took 3 years. I drew so many pictures for this, but the actual work, you're doing that, you as the readers, because you see 2 panels and your head goes, oh, so this must have happened between those panels for these 2 images to work.
Yes.
So in that way, comics is a very interactive medium.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Let's focus on, we're not going to leave Heartcore entirely, but I do want to touch upon one of your other works, if you don't mind. What led to your collaborating on Bald? And this is Teresa Jakova's story of losing her hair due to alopecia. It was translated by Martha Kuhlman and also published with Graphic Mundi here in the US. How does that work intersect with Heartcore?
Oh, there is a very straight through line. So Bald was the previous book that I worked on, and I was always in love with graphic novels that are autobiographies. That's just my preferred genre. I love that you can really get into the author's head because they're usually drawing and writing at once. But I felt that in Czech Republic there wasn't space and industry and the market for autobiographies. So when Teresa, who we've been friends for ages, when she got sick with alopecia, she was journaling her process quite in detail, and actually an editor from a Czech publishing house reached out to her asking to turn this experience into a comic. And then that's how the book came to existence. And when we finished drawing Bald, I looked at it and I was like, so it's possible. And you can even see it on the art style that this is kind of an updated version of how I drew Bald.
Yeah, I thought that the character expressions and facial details sort of expanded on the style that you had in the previous book. And you also, just to suggest a connection, but let me know if this feels like an apt one, you discuss the many different images and presentations that you personally went through, both while finding yourself and while looking for a partner. And they're not mutually exclusive, obviously. Teresa had to do that anew, had to do that again a little later in her life because of the alopecia. Do you see the journeys as similar at all, or rather distinct?
We actually had quite similar childhood. We were both huge tomboys, and we had hobbies that were maybe typically more masculine, or that's what we were told. And it would be interesting to compare this new approach now, because Teresa had to reinvent herself with her, bald head. In the beginning, it was scarves and hats and wigs, and now she is completely fine walking around, sun just shining from her head. And for me, just to get a little more personal, this is not in Heartcore, for me, even the reaction to Heartcore kind of made me realize that there were many things that I thought were like sociable? What's the word? Social?
Sociable?
Yeah, like related to society.
Oh, societal.
Societal, yeah.
Yep.
But they were in fact patriarchal. So I also went through some kind of a reinvention myself.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, let's dive into the sociological aspects of this. Heartcore offers an excellent, accessible dive into attachment theory. Now, this was proposed in the 20th century by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. Do you view attachment theory as universal and cross-cultural? You share an episode with your father, and who shared his own suicidal thoughts to you at a very young age. You received them at a very young age. So I'm not being irreverent when I say this, but just using your own nomenclature, is this sort of part negative one? So I guess I should break that into two questions, so I spewed it all out at once. Before we get to the narrative, can you first tell me your thoughts on attachment theory? Do you feel it's universal and cross-cultural?
Yeah, so in short, attachment theory presents the idea that the way our parents reacted to our emotions as children, that is something that we will probably look for in a romantic partner as adults. And there are limits to attachment theory, as many Western attachment theories, and it was always used with like the setting of a nuclear family.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it was always used with in cases when the child had a primary caretaker.
Yeah.
Which almost always is the mother. In all of the experiments, you'll find the child with the mother. But yeah, we kind of use this ungendered term. In cultures or in the past, when the child was kind of raised by a whole village, I think it might get a bit more difficult, but sure, it has limits of how timeless it can be, but I really think that it can be applied to like most cases.
Great, yeah. And I think it has been updated, advanced, complicated, taken out of a heteronormative model, taken out of a nuclear family model. So I'm pleased to hear you say that it has value at its core, even if the way it was expressed in the 20th century isn't something that can be copied and pasted from culture to culture. Okay, now let's flip to your attachment. And your father, you include also your mother. I don't mean to overlook her at all, but I thought the scene with your father and his own suicidal thoughts was gripping. Again, it's introduced late in the book. I'm not expressing that as a criticism. Certainly, I'm wondering about the effect, the narrative effect that has on, do you want the reader to rethink what shaped you? Do you want the reader to rethink how they were understanding the story, or even to rethink themselves?
Yeah, no, this is a really good question, because it's it's a question about how we put together narratives and stories. My intention was to present this story about a young woman who can be super obnoxious a lot of the time and has her issues, and maybe she's kind of sympathetic because we see into her head and we see her challenges, but the reasons are not there from the beginning. So I am kind of inviting the reader to pass some kind of a judgment onto me in the beginning, and then either give them reasoning, or flip it on the head for a bit. It's and also it's just purely editing choice. I think those are limits of autobiographies. If you're reading them, just rest assured that you're reading an edited story. And if it wasn't edited, it would be so boring. Maybe I'm switching up the linearity of events. Maybe I'm taking 3 characters and putting them in one, or maybe this one really quick conversation was 5 conversations over 2 years. But for me, it's important that in a spiritual sense, what I'm presenting is truthful, but it's not truthful as a documentary or as a chronicle.
The
right?
story is real, but the characters are made up. It's true. It's true at its core. It's true at its heart.
The characters are real as well.
Okay, fine.
But all these little, the little cracks that happened when I was moving things, they are filled with glue that's maybe not 100% true.
Fair. That is fair. Let me ask you one more structural question here about your process. Another quote that jumped out to me when you were speaking with Barbara Dillett at Fan-Based Press, you credit your systemic process for, quote, capturing and exploring the various themes of hardcore, quote, to autism. Where would you place your neurodiversity, your neurospiciness, in your own experiences of dating and love?
Yeah, this is a tough question, and as I was talking before about some kind of a reinvention I went through after finishing Heartcore. This is one of the puzzle pieces that I realized I found, and I started looking back at my life through the lens of, those were probably some neurodiverse decisions that I was making. And it kind of made me think about if some of these identities we have, if they don't kind of come in bundles, maybe those are packages, and some of them take bigger space.
Yeah. Because
a lot of neurodiverse people are not cis, right? And is the identity are there? Did the neurodiversity make them realize that maybe I don't have to be normative, or is it something that they were born with, or how do these little things play in the bigger picture?
Yeah.
I forgot what the question was.
Well, you're hitting on it. It's great. Where would you put additionally that neurodiversity in terms of experiences of dating and love?
Maybe so relationships and love. I'll just let me do a turn towards comics.
For sure.
Lately, I realized that one of the reasons I love making comics is because I can take this pile of text and experiences and ideas and neatly put them into little panels. And if that's
Sure.
not autistic, then I don't know what is. Just tidying up this information into a cleaner way how to do it. And with dating and love, I don't think I figured that out yet, but I think a lot of neurodiverse people feel quite lonely, and that's because it's just a bit more rare to find someone who thinks like you, and on the other hand, sometimes, especially autistic women, we tend to try to mask,
Yeah.
and that kind of leads us to trying to find a partner because that's what you should do instead of asking ourselves if we really want it. So that is still kind of an open question for me.
Yeah. I think what you said particularly about the comics form offering a, whatever you want to term it, a shape, a format, a system, I don't think it's a coincidence that when we're looking at graphic medicine, when we're looking at the intersection of comics and wellness or healthcare or medicine, the three most popular subjects in graphic medicine as of 2025 are mental health, as you suggested, COVID, everybody trying to figure out what we just went through with COVID, and cancer. Now, the only reason I bring that up, and this is just in my own studies, is I see comics also as what I call a dysoncological space, that if you have an illness that's about uncontrolled growth and uncontrolled something that can't be contained, a body process that is running unchecked, I think there's something very attractive about comics. The panel, the sequence, the layout, even if it doesn't directly tie to the narrative, offers a dysoncological, safer space as a narrative.
No, for sure, and even just the visual metaphor for that, I think, is can be very well explored in this kind of a medium.
Yeah, I love how these things all fit together, and I'm not equating them, certainly, but I do love when they are seizing on these tools and making them work for their own story. One more kind of sober question, and then we'll conclude on something a little more uplifting and give the audience a chance to ask whatever questions they might like. Since it is September of 2025, and it is a predominant element of our current news cycle, can I ask, in regards to grooming and sexual abuse inflicted upon young girls by those in positions of power, if you have any opinion on the Jeffrey Epstein case here in the U.S., do you have an international view of it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it's no surprise that the American politics, American culture is dominating the rest of the world. So we, even the news are kind of the American news are present in our space, and I am really wondering, like how deep this one goes, because I think it's so well connected to so many people that if it was presented in an understandable way to the public, it would really be the way that could the thing that could destroy it all. And also I think we would have learned things we think we know about people we already don't like, but I think we would find some things about people that we consider like good, or whatever that word can mean. The interesting thing I'm just trying to find a way how to compare it to my much smaller Czech reality. There was a small wave of Me Too a few years back, and because one young politician was caught in the middle of many accusations from these young women, and he actually went to prison. And I'm kind of asking myself if he would have gone if he was white, because he was a black politician, and seeing how on one side people were hating on him and supporting the idea of him going to prison was somewhat validating for me. On the other side, I think his color of the skin made it easier for even people who would not have supported this.
Yeah. I won't editorialize here. That's not my place. I only want to state that the question is asked very much in a nonpartisan frame, but I think what you're raising rightly is, should we see this in some other frame? Not a Democrat or Republican issue. cultural issue, racial issue, class issue. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I can see a real issue with the fact that we think this is quite a clear-cut case, that we, after it would be released, we would find ourselves on the morally just side, and everybody we don't like would be on the other side.
Right.
But this is like a Pandora box, and if we want to live by all these morals, that we need to believe people who are saying, okay, this happens, we don't need a freaking list.
Yeah.
We just need to listen to, people who are willing to share their traumatic experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And also, I did check this question in advance with you. This wasn't sprung
No worries.
as a gotcha by any means. Let's get back to you and the book. As we get to the conclusion of my questions, I do want to look at one thing you said in the conclusion of your own book. You note that this book, over the years of it being developed, was written by 3 different Stepankas, 3 different sort of evolutions of yourself. Here, now that we're talking, at Harvard, who are you now?
Well, I wonder, maybe is the slide there? I think
Yes,
it was.
I think we have it.
Yeah, so the Stepanka that you can see here with the white shorter hair, that's the Stepanka from the last page of this book. And over those 3 years, my hair were growing out, so in the end I end up with my natural hair color, which was also kind of, like symbolic. And if I would fill in the other portraits, it would like each of them would be like a different story. I'm thinking about, like, I've done a little brochure on female autism. I am thinking about doing a book about all these like non-normative ways of living, and that can be neurotypicals versus neurodiverse people, like how that kind of, but also like asexuals versus allosexuals, like what is the division, or maybe not division, but like what can we learn to understand each other better.
Yes.
And so I am still exploring that, and on one hand, sometimes I was quite sad that I learned some things about myself this late.
Okay.
But if there is still something new to learn, then that's quite beautiful.
Thank you for sharing this with us and putting it into a beautiful package, a beautiful and useful item. At this point, I'd love to turn it over to any questions from our audience here, either questions about the work or the themes and topics, or just being a Czech artist and the experience of bringing that work here to the U.S.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry that I got here late. Classes.
Better late than never.
Yes. I am starting writing a biography on a individual, and you mentioned the difficulty in crafting a coherent narrative, and I wonder if you can say a bit more about that. Why is it that we have this strong urge to find a thread through otherwise radically different decisions and choices we've made during our lifetime? Where do you think this comes from? And your view on it, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, because we need to find out what is that initial spark that's going to carry the whole book, the whole creative process. Because if yours going to take a year or 2 or 3, that is a marathon, and you need to know where to take the energy from, because there will be times when it's going to be exhausting, when you might be asking yourself whether you want to start another project or to. So I think a lot of autobiographies are fueled by this need to explain ourselves, or sometimes there is a certain thing that we feel other people overlooked, and the book is kind of a way how to show them. I like thinking about graphic novels, especially autobiographies, as a mean of communication, especially because we get to have complete control over the story, and that's why I think we so often explore trauma in these books, because we can tell these traumatic stories the way we felt them, the way we lived them, but also in a way that are not like endangering us, right? Because sometimes sharing a painful thing can put us out there in a way that's just not safe. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Well, I want to think. You obviously had to struggle with how to fit the pieces together, both in terms of your stories and telling other people's stories too. Where is this drive? Why do we feel the need to tell stories that have this coherent psychological narrative through it? I mean, after all, there's a good reason to think that we shouldn't, because even the most reflective of us have a hard time identifying our own coherent narrative. Let alone like through our lifetime, but even like 2 years. But yet, we really want that. Why do we want it so badly?
Why do we want to turn life into a story? There is a quote I kinda used in the book, that life doesn't make narrative sense, and that is like half stolen from an amazing TV show that I don't think nobody saw because people don't like musicals. The show is called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh, I love Rachel Bloom.
Yes.
Yay.
Okay. So maybe nobody in Europe knows it. And that is also like, sure, it's fiction, but it's a good example of how this trying to find, a story, because this character is trying to push a story on herself, right? She's singing out her emotions, and she is trying to justify her decisions, but as if it was a story, right? Her is a love story, so you would do anything for real love. Therefore, you can do horrible things in the name of love. And I am getting a bit lost in my sentences. What did I want to say? Help me out.
Yeah.
Read my mind, please, quick.
I was going to.
It's
Okay, I was going to add an academic angle to this, and that there's a book called Humans called the Storytelling Animal, and that this idea that the main tool that humans have are our brains in order to hypothesize things or put together plans and execute schemes in a way that maybe the animal kingdom can't. That leaves us sort of infected with a need to find meaning in everything, to find coherence in everything. We stayed alive through this, and now we can't release it. What does that feel like
No,
to you?
I think that's true. Like, there is definitely some kind of a biological advantage that we have that is represented in communication, and stories are a way of communicating. And I think a lot of people have this obsessive need to be understood, and storytelling can grow out of that quite easily.
I mean, that's kind of the whole conceit of narrative medicine, right? It's like we're understanding the whole experience of what we're dealing with through some sort of narrative, and it has to be in an orderly fashion or it makes no sense. but that kind of makes all biography fictional because you're ordering things like you're talking about. You're choosing to put things in an order that really the order is kind of being imposed from above by yourself or by the autobiographer or by the biographer, right?
No, that's a good point. Like, if you guys ever like studied documentaries, then you know that the only the closest we could get to a real documentary would be like CCTV footage. And even so, you would have to pick a day, an hour, a minute, and therefore you are an editor, and therefore the purity of the documentary is lost the moment you choose the time frame. That's why quite often we use the term autofiction instead of autobiography.
Yes.
This is just playing with words, but I don't like using that too much because in Czech you use fiction when you mean completely made up, in kind of, not in a pejorative way, but like when you want to say that someone is like coming up with crazy ideas, you say like, yeah, nice fiction. So in this context, I don't like putting the word fiction next to stories about sexual assault because that just make people misunderstand, and that is just like some kind of my PR decision. But yeah, that's why I don't use it.
I think in the graphic medicine community and comic studies communities, we've been trending more towards saying graphic memoir.
Oh, yeah.
Just to suggest it's not fictional, there's a truth to it, as you suggested before, but that it is crafted.
Yes.
It is a construction and not meant to be a chronicle, not meant to be a exact scientific artifact, but one person's interpretation, even of their own life, even of their own process and such. So we more commonly capture that under, because graphic novel, I think, as we know, is a terrible misnomer to begin with. These aren't novels in the traditional sense, in the same way that they're not comical in the comic sense. We've fallen into these other terms. The slight course correct has been graphic memoir, or when it comes to an illness specifically, graphic pathography.
Oh, right.
That's
Which,
one
yeah,
for me.
doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way, but it is useful.
And Germany really likes the pathography.
Pathographies, yeah.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it always makes me think of. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah.
But you can finish.
No, as I walk, the demarcation between fiction and nonfiction, and did you see in like public libraries or bookstores always irks me.
Yeah.
Because memoir gets put into nonfiction, and it's really this. It's almost like this middle space. It belongs in its own world, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I was just curious. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just curious if you've noticed a difference in the reception of your book between the original Czech version and the English version, or similarly, like the reception back home as opposed to here, and whether there was like you had to really change the meaning or the come up with different ways to describe things that worked in English that didn't work in the original language, vice versa.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I would say that the English name is better than the Czech one. In order
Czech means sweet. In Czech it means sweetheart.
Not quite.
Okay.
So srdcovka, I would like to hear you say that. It's a term for something that you hold very close to your heart, but also it can be like the one movie from your childhood that you know is kind of bad, but you just love it. It was perfect for you at that time. But hardcore with the pun in there, and heart and core. I mean, this is just perfect. The main reception I got in Czech Republic was So it was almost worrying how many millennial women came up to me and told me like this was my life. Like not even like 90% of what you're describing. I don't even have to like change much, and I went through these things. I felt like this, and I thought I put together a very personal experience, a very specific experience, and it turned out that so many other people lived it, and they felt seen by the book, which was amazing. But it also makes me wonder that. The systems that were in place must have been seriously corrupt, because like the pain they produced, it wasn't necessary for sure. And obviously it's much here in States. I think you guys are much more used to these kind of books, the memoirs, the comics memoirs. There is a longer tradition. I mean, if you just look at like Blankets or Fun Home or all these amazing authors who are exploring their home life that's been around for ages. And I'd say this is like a second or third book in Czechia that was presented as a memoir, and the other two were really like smaller projects that were maybe more of an illustrative nature. One is about fertility, and the other one is actually more of a documentary than a memoir. Yeah, so yeah, it was quite different.
Fantastic.
We're all processing.
You're all processing. Yeah.
Processing.
No, that's fine. Continuing off that, I was going to ask, you touched on it some with this kind of book, but what is the comic scene and culture kind of like in back home, right?
Surprisingly, it's going quite well.
Okay.
We are a small country, it's 10 million people. Czech language is, limited to this one place. And the comics community is very strictly divided. Sadly, that's the reality. So one half is like these more mainstream fans of Marvel and DC. It's more pop culture than comics. And the other half is indie authors like me, journalists, theorists, historians who are quite active. And, unfortunately, these two halves don't cooperate as much. It's kind of, we both everybody likes comics, I mean, but that's not, the cooperation sadly is not there. But I am quite proud to say that for such a small country, our scene is well and blooming. You can find books that, in my opinion, are like of international quality, and it's super diverse. So you can find, it's called Saint Barbara, an amazing this kind of a detective story based on a real event that is more of a, like these Swedish detective stories. Or you can find a book where a bunch of children in the countryside find different artifacts from fairy tale, and they decide to use them as if they were superheroes. I love that one. So one of those artifacts, it's a pot from a Czech fairy tale that brews porridge.
Porridge.
Yeah. And if you don't say it, like, stop making porridge, it's going to make porridge forever. So one of the kids is using it for fighting, and I just love that. It's an amazing idea.
Oh, that's amazing. Any other questions?
I just wanna for the later guests, if they could be also given a little reward for showing
The
us.
stickers.
Take more. I think I have enough. If you find some that you like, I'm really glad that you guys made it.
Awesome.
I can bribe you if you ask a question, you get a book. Anything is fine.
Yeah, wait, where's my book?
Well, if we're going to go out on a final question here, can you just, project forward? You're going to a number of locations here in the U.S. You were in Rhode Island the other day. You were in Somerville, Massachusetts yesterday. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about the plans ahead and if you have any particular goals for these locations?
Yeah, so it's SPX Next.
Small Press Expo.
Yeah. So if you'll be there, then come say hi. I'll be there signing books and being overwhelmed probably. I would like to, if you're around, the Czech Cultural Institutes are actually doing some really nice events. So if you're in New York, check out the Czech Center New York. And if you're in Washington, check out the embassy program. These organizations are doing their best to present Czech culture. I was just thinking the other day that, I am from a small country and it can be hard to, come here, meet you guys. But on the other hand, there are still cultural institutes that are actively helping me get there, and it might be harder for an American author of comparable size to actually get abroad. So in that sense, I am super lucky. There is, this line is open, and yeah, this was super nice, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
End recording here.